In 2013, Forbes magazine wrote an article stating that our national student loan debt has exceeded $1.2 trillion, which is about 6% of our overall federal debt as a country, which is about 16.8 trillion at the time the article was written and has further increased since. So, with our students and our future generation taking out all of these loans to pay for their own education, why are we as a country bailing out banks and corporations that gamble their money away on irresponsible decisions and just take risks that don't need to be taken or do, back-sided things that they shouldn't be doing in the first place? The idea here is that as a country, we should abolish student loan debt completely. And we should then make that 1% pay back all of the bailouts that they received, which is a lot, it's substantial, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And make it easier for education to be free for everybody so that we have a better future for our children and their children and so on and so forth. Now, on to the first point. What is the real cost of an education in America these days? Right now, each year, a student can rack up an average of $20,000 to $30,000 in debt just for a year of tuition. That's not including books, and housing, and everything that goes along with it. And in 2013 to 2014, it was shown that there's a 16% increase in your average yearly tuition, which is about $4,000 to $5,000 for most main colleges. Now, student loans are about 32% of college costs, and that exceeds scholarships and grants and everything like that, which is by far ridiculous. Now, on my second point, we should make Wall Street pay. The reason we should make Wall Street pay is because in 2008, as everybody knows, we had a national, economic crash. It was the housing market because these banks and these corporations were owning their own rating agencies and owning their own banks, which lended all the money out. So what they were doing was they were giving their own banks that they owned a better rating so that people would trust them more. But in reality, they were giving these banks better ratings, but they were charging ridiculously high mortgage rates, knowing that people couldn't pay them off. So they would end up defaulting because they can't afford it. And then what they did is when somebody would get a mortgage and take out that loan, they would gamble against that loan. And they would end up making a good profit because once the person defaulted, they still ended up making their money while screwing everybody else over. So the real idea here is to abolish student loan debt and then make these banks pay back these so far, I want to say $4.6 trillion they've accumulated in bailouts. So that way they can be held responsible for their actions while our future generations don't have to be. Now, how does this solution actually help? The main issue here is that with free education comes a lot of things. It's a big topic these days in politics and everything like that. Free education for everybody would mean that anybody could have access to anything they wanted to do. You can follow your dreams instead of worrying about, I can't afford college, which is a lot of people these days. I, for example, get financial aid, which I'm grateful to have because I couldn't afford college on my own. Some people don't get that. Some people have to pay for it and they can't pay for it, so they can't get that education. I think the main thing here is they don't want people to have access to this education. They don't want that income gap to close. They want to keep themselves on a much higher 1 percentile than the whole rest of the country, which is ridiculous. And they should be held responsible because they did it to themselves. Like I said, that $4.8 trillion is about a quarter of the entire debt for this country. not on top of the 1.2 just from student loans. So if that was all forgiven and then the banks would pay that all back, we could potentially only owe about under $10 trillion, which is a lot of money, as we all know. But at the same time, with higher education and higher people gaining a higher perspective and a brighter mind, we have a much better chance of putting these children and these adults into our future where they can come up with new ideas and new solutions and innovation and everything like that. So it's something to think about, and it's something that's still being talked about to this day. So what do y'all think? I mean, should it really be forgiven? I don't like student loans. I don't like financial aid. I don't like having to pay for getting an education. High school's free. Everything else is free. All the other education's free. It's just when you get to college, you're expected to pay for everything. And that's ridiculous.